So you're in this really interesting position, which is you're a professional athlete. So there comes kind of public notoriety with that. You have a quite public income, right? In terms of people know the contracts and things that you guys sign. It's millions of dollars a year in many cases. But you also spend a lot of time investing. And so what I want to maybe start with is just, when did you start to be interested in investing? And then maybe we'll go asset class by asset class, but just talk to me a little bit about, you spent your whole life trying to make it to the NBA and play at a high level. This, I think, to many is an afterthought, but for you, you take it very seriously and spend a lot of time on it. So kind of where does that interest come from?
Yeah, it's something that growing up, my dad, my mom's a school teacher, so she's always stressed the importance of education. And then my dad is a school bus driver, but now he's been in real estate and he's been subdividing land for probably the last 15 years. And he's really tried to educate me and my sisters and just teach us little things along the way. So I've had that background and education, and that kind of got me interested in real estate from a pretty early age, and then didn't make basically any money until my first contract with the Cavs that year, and started learning about stocks and bonds and different things, and found a financial advisor, and they've taught me a lot, and I always ask them a lot of different questions. And then there's just conversations that happen in the locker room between players, and I've always tried to pick the brain of the older players and the veterans, because that's the easiest way to learn is from their successes or their mistakes, things they've gone through. And a lot of veterans are really helpful, and they want to pass on their knowledge to the next generation. I think that's something that's really cool in the locker rooms in the NBA. But I guess one of the main things I'm interested now is venture capital, and that's probably happened over the last 3 to 4 years. I had a small allocation in my portfolio through my financial advisors, and would always ask them questions about what it was. And then as you start reading more about what other players in the league are doing, the conversations in the locker room happen a lot more around that. And that's what I've been focusing in on the last 4 years or so.
Yeah, and it feels like this has become much more popular, obviously, in all professional sports, but the NBA specifically. I think there's been a lot of kind of media coverage on the teams in the Bay Area, just because that's kind of the center of tech. But I think in conversations that you and I have had, this is happening in every locker room, right? Like there's players who are becoming more interested in this. And so as you're talking to your financial advisors, how much, I think, education did you get or interest did you get in terms of just like, if we invest in innovation and hold it in the private markets for long periods of time, like that'll drive returns, versus it being more like company led? Hey, that specific company I really like, and I want to invest in that company. So was it more of like I want venture capital exposure, or was it just you found kind of individual companies and kind of built the venture capital exposure through the interest in individual companies?
I would say a little bit of both. I think early on, you get brought different opportunities, and, I send it through to my financial advisors, see what they think. And that led to more conversations about, venture capital in general. In the off season, they set up a few meetings for me with different people in San Francisco who were very helpful. And I think that's something that I've really enjoyed, is how helpful everybody is in the VC industry. A lot of people have taught me a lot of things, and Jason being one of them. I've been to his launch incubator a couple of times in San Francisco. Nick Crocker from Australia has really helped me out and introduced me to a lot of people over here. And I just enjoy being around people who are trying to be their best in their given field. And I find it very energizing to talk to somebody for 30 minutes or an hour and pick up a lot of the knowledge that they have on a specific subject, something that I hadn't known about before, and you get to learn from an expert for 45 minutes. It's a lot of fun.
This is why I like you, is because that's exactly what I like about the whole podcast stuff, right? It's just you get to sit and talk to people and learn from them. You've made a number of pretty cool and interesting investments. I'll let you kind of pick which one you want to talk about, but maybe we'll talk about like an individual deal that you've done and kind of the process you go through. I've kind of gotten to see it, firsthand, and you surprised me, I think, when I saw how much diligence you did and kind of reference checks and all of that. But just what, is there a deal that you want to talk about? Maybe we can go through the process.
Yeah. I'll talk about two, and then I'll ask you about your process as well. But first one, a recent one, is Levels, the constant glucose monitor. And I actually saw it on Twitter. And the 8 Sleep founder, Matteo, another company I've invested in, was tweeting about this constant glucose monitor. Had a screenshot of a graph that showed his glucose going up and down. And so I messaged him about that, just asking what it is. And it looked really interesting. And he said he had got involved with them, told me what he liked about it. And then I asked him to introduce me to one of the founders, Sam. Emailed him. He sent me over some info. We got on a call. They eventually sent me one out for me to try myself. I think after the call I had with him, I was that impressed with what they had built so far and where I could see it going, and how big of an issue I guess obesity, diabetes is in the US and around the world. That the opportunity is massive to really help out a lot of people and for the company to be successful. But I made sure to try it for a few days first and really loved it. I've learned some interesting things. Around 2 p.m. I kind of dip down a little bit, but if I have a handful of almonds, that keeps me pretty level. But overall, I was eating pretty well. So that's one example. The other one is BlockFi, which you introduced me to. Set up a call with Zach and Brian from BlockFi. Learn a lot from them. And then I have a couple of other, I guess, contacts in the crypto industry who I spoke to and messaged with, and they all said really good things about BlockFi. And then I also, which I think is great for founders, listened to, I think, 3 or 4 different podcasts of Zach talking, and it was interesting to see the growth over time of the company, from just speaking to Zach and seeing the graphs, but then also going back and listening to him speak about what they were planning to do in the future, and then seeing that already in the company. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So I didn't know that you were going to say that one, but on the BlockFi one, that's the one that I got to see kind of firsthand, right? And I remember when, after you got off the call, you're like, hey, this is interesting. And I think most people at that point would try to make a decision. But your process was much more, look, I've got this network of people who are professional investors. They're familiar with the company, some that are investors and some that might not be. Like, let me basically leverage their work, right? That their diligence, their years of experience. And ultimately, I think that helped you get to the point where you want to make an investment. But that process, I think, is not utilized that often by a lot of athletes, right? They want to make the decision. And so there's this element of like kind of humbleness, right? Of like, hey, I might not be the expert. I'm smart enough to kind of make the decision, but let me get as much data as possible. Is that kind of how you looked at it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something I've definitely got better at, because I think as an athlete, you have a high level of confidence, and you like to think it translates to a lot of things, but you have to be open to learning and getting the opinion of experts who are doing this day in and day out. Because, my main job right now, even though we're in the off season, is basketball, keeping in shape, making sure my body's right for next season. But then, lunchtime in the afternoons, this is definitely what I like to work on. And I think one of the cool things about Twitter is being able to DM somebody, and ask them, hey, I'm looking at this investment. And if it's a existing investor, and just saying, can you jump on a call for 10 minutes and just give me your thoughts? And that's how I got in touch with Michael Arrington, and he was awesome with his feedback and what he saw in BlockFi, and just general info on crypto, which I'm pretty new to. I'm still learning a lot about. But I think Twitter, I'm realizing the power of it, just to be able to DM somebody and get on a call that day.